I mean, it's just super rewarding when you hear the stories. Like when I see the report, usually weekly, we get a report from my coworker Jennifer of like this many people are getting baptized on Sunday, and especially now, I feel like the ministry here is more vibrant than it's ever been. I think things have come together. There's, in every business, in every church, there's hard times and better times. And I just feel like we're in a time where things are just really vibrant. And it's just super rewarding to be a part of the mechanism that gets things onto Facebook and Instagram and in front of people's faces and on that little rectangle that they're staring at constantly. It just makes it worth it. Like I said, I would so much rather be helping the gospel get out there than helping the CEO buy a bigger jet.
Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers, where we go into the back office of ministry and learn how to uplift our church members and have an impact on our communities through technology. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io. It's a common story for folks. If you know something about electronics of any kind, then churches assume you could volunteer and work in all kinds of technology. Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers. Today, our special guest is Chris Higgins. Welcome, Chris.
How you doing?
Hey,
Thanks for
we're
having
doing
me.
great. And we love the stories of how people get started in their career so that our listeners can kind of see themselves and understand that they're not the only ones in that angle. So if you can help us by sharing folks how you went from worship to technology.
Well, it's an interesting story. I got recruited by the pastor who was running our contemporary service here. We have kind of a unique church where we have a beautiful sanctuary building that just, when you look at it, screams the word church, steeples and all that. And it's beautiful inside and holds about 800 or something legally, I think. And then on the backside of that, there's this theater building that was built in like 1914 or something like that. And in that building, we have, the full on bass guitar and drums, worship praise band service. And so when I first came here, we were just attending the sanctuary. We didn't know about the modern style service. And then one thing led to another. A guy who played drums with me as a kid was playing drums and like, what are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. And then you should play in the band over here. So we attended a couple times. I started playing in the band. And as time went on, the guy who was running the band became a pastor and his roles changed and his hats became many. And then he recruited me to be the worship leader over there. But then after it was probably only a couple years, they asked me to do the website as a part-time job because a volunteer moved away. I think it was a college student that got a career and moved to the Midwest or something. And then as time went on and on, well, I went to school for art, so they noticed my art skills and I was photoshopping and doing things for the contemporary service. And as the church grew and need for high tech communications grew when it came, that back then, that website, I came here in 2005. And so websites were kind of an option, especially for churches that didn't have a lot of resource and huge staff. So then they realized like, oh, we really need to have the website updated on a regular basis and stuff. I guess it's funny to think of now that you would be like, well, I guess we need a website. I mean, I remember when a congregation member said, you guys should really have a Facebook page or a Facebook account, or I don't, what they called it back then. And I was like, yeah, I guess maybe, and it's weird to think of now. But and it was just one of those things where God just sort of put me in there, and it was nice for the church and a lot of churches to have somebody that could do creative and also be very technical doing website and dabbling in CSS code and, being able to write HTML or whatever is necessary. I like to geek out on stuff like that. And also was trained in art school and like to do visual art and music and all of it. So, audio, video, technical artwork, it's all part of my skill set. So that's sort of how it just sort of happened. The need became more and more, and I just kind of grew into that role.
So your job didn't have really a job description. You kind of morphed over
Well,
years.
Yeah, the original job description was basically just to run the volunteers that were in the band, plan the services and be the main worship leader, singer, and band leader. And then and as I said, I don't know if we maybe we were talking beforehand. I started doing the website as a part-time job, and that kind of snowballed into sort of a communications role. And then my job title switched, I believe, is in 2010. So it was about 5 years after being here.
And so today, the scope of your job is you do print and digital.
Yeah, it's basically everything that has to do with communications in general, whether it's a postcard or a screen, or luckily we have a small team now, so I don't do as much video editing and stuff as I did during the dark time of 2020. We started doing well, everything had to be. We were in California, so it was very draconian here. So we stopped meeting. Well, we did have live services. We did a tent and we did various things, but then we started doing weekly church news as a video because of the circumstances, and we've kept that. But now I have a younger gal that works with us that does basically all the social media posts and does all that video. It got pretty difficult for me and my coworker Kelly and Dave, who's our technical director, because if it didn't go through one of us during 2020, it didn't go anywhere because for a while we were only digital. And so yeah, it was the three of us we had a few moments where you just had to take a deep breath because it was just the workload just exploded to where some roles at churches and other companies they're just like, oh, it was the greatest time because I just kind of chilled and I didn't do much. And I'm like, that did not to me at all. It was the polar opposite of that.
There's the proactive side of the job. It's fun to plan, design, see a project through. But have you ever had those reactive ones outside of COVID where something happened unexpectedly? You had to step up, get the message out, and to kind of quote unquote save the day?
I suppose, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, the COVID time comes to mind the most. I can't think of a specific example. If you maybe give me an example of what you're thinking of, I might be able to think of something. But I mean, there's always a reactive thing because there's, maybe a prominent person in the community passes away and we need to pivot and we need to do this huge thing or whatever. But I mean, that comes up quite a bit. We have about 12 to 1400 attending each week. So that means, you probably double that plus. And then plus we have a school with 800 so kids in it. So we have a lot of people orbiting around here. So all kinds of different things happen and all sorts of events happen. And then you have the senior pastor factor where he's like, we really need to. I told these people we could have this event, and you're like, well, we have to honor that. And now, 3 to 5 of us are working extra because there's a special event that needs this and needs parking signs and needs video screens and whatever. So, I mean, there's always something like that, I would say.
Right. So communications is a really challenging thing, right? Because you can communicate everywhere multiple times, and then people still come back and say they
Yeah.
didn't know about it.
Yeah, and I think back to when I first started doing the website, Pastor Chris, who was the guy who brought me in, he's like, we supposed to, it was there was some sort of fires happening, and there was donations to, people wanted to donate to help. I can't remember the circumstance. It was a long time ago, like 2007, 8, and he's like, yeah, my dad went to the website and he couldn't find that, and I was like, you mean the little box that has the picture of the fire engine and the flames? Like he didn't, and he's like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't. Do I need to make it flash? Does it need to move? Like, and the other example, at the same time period, they used to post the class schedule for the school, and it was the same thing. It was like, well, they can't find it, and I was like, well, should I? And I think I actually did. I don't know if you remember the like scrolling banner that would go by and the old website back in the old days when it was like Fisher Price, my first website, and I think I actually did that because people were like, they just couldn't see it, and so yeah, and that I mean that still is today. Like I would say something that's really important. Well, I send out an email each week. Well, I send out like 3 emails each week, but something that's really important in our main one that just has all the ads for like, here's the men's thing, here's the women's thing, here's the hike, whatever. If it's like the church meeting and it's in the bylaws that the annual congregational assembly that we have in May, it'll be there like 3 times because the human brain just needs overstimulation, especially now that we're bombarded with the little magic supercomputer that's in our pockets and our purses. You got to over communicate for people to just even know. So, yes.
Right. You hinted to some stuff there, but do you have a checklist or technique to make sure the message is comprehensive and that it's getting out and hopefully answers all the questions?
As far as like each different thing,
Each announcement.
yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of a larger team now. So there's a video that happens in church, and that just depends on, I mean, everybody wants to have a video or wants to have a postcard or whatever, but we kind of go with the things that are more globally uh, of appeal. But I guess what I was going to say was for the bigger events or for the things that are really important, like Bible studies and stuff like that. Usually there's a postcard. There's probably a short video that's shown 1 or 2 Sundays or more in church. There's a screen during the opening and the pre-service and I guess post-service too, flipping through. Here's the men's event. Here's the women's event. Here's the VBS is coming. It's time to register. It's time to register as a volunteer. There's social media posts are very important depending on demographics and age groups. For the older folks, we usually stick to Facebook, and for the when it's school families and young families, we don't even usually bother with Facebook. We just go straight to Instagram. But yeah, social media, the screens, the postcards that are scattered around campus and at the welcome table. And then, like I said, there's 3 emails that go each week. We're blessed now that our senior pastor has been doing it for a while now. Basically on Wednesday, sometimes Thursday. I always tell him, like, if you miss a week, it's not that big of a deal because he's been doing it really consistently. He writes a little thing with some encouragement, sometimes, like, for example, was it Wednesday morning, we got word that this gal that worked at the Lutheran high school here that they call Orange Lutheran High School passed away. She'd been there for, a million years and just a great lady that had many different roles. And this was her home church. And so he wrote a beautiful thing about her. Sometimes it's just commenting on regular life and a quick little story and a Bible verse, but he does that as a weekly thing. So that's been great because people want to read it, but he also tags on, hey, this is the Bible, and being in it and being in community with people that believe in it is healthy for you. And it's a better way to advertise and say, come to our thing, which we do that on Thursdays. It's like lists out what's happening on Sunday, and or if there's events on Saturday, and then it's also just kind of a list of, advertisement of here are the things that are happening. So it's a combination of all those different things, hitting people from all angles to make sure that they know, and they're not like, hey, I didn't know about that Bible study. And then, there's always going to be somebody that might say that, but you just do the best you can. You hope God will bless it, and you ask for help, and you just hit all those angles because everybody's doing their own thing. And I always tell people, we're not competing with other churches. We're competing with McDonald's, Disneyland, Taco Bell, whatever, like Starbucks. Like that's the type of things we're competing with on the social media or the internet or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah. You've done that social post before and you stared at it and there's no likes, there's no comments, there's no views. And then other times it surprises you.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever done a communication project that really took off and really had an impact and surprised you on the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, a long time ago, the first thing that came to mind when you said that was when I was still kind of doing everything. I did a social media post because the cheerleaders in the junior high, I think they still have cheerleaders, and they were doing competitions and they won some competition. And the gal who was running the cheerleaders at the time had shot me a couple pictures. I don't know if she emailed or texted. I don't remember how. It was quite a while ago. It was probably a text message. But anyway, I did a post about, the cheerleaders won this little thing. And I was like, somebody asked me to do it. And I was like, because my mindset is always more focused on church. And I was like, that's kind of cute, I guess. But then what I learned from that is that that got shared and shared again, and grandmas shared it, and moms shared it, dads shared it. And I realized, like, oh, social media is like they shared it because they were proud of their community here at St. John's. And so they decided to share that. And I was like, ooh, that's a good lesson. So if we can come up with things or just, work on things that we think people are going to be proud of, then that's going to help it go viral or whatever. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me. And that was, like I said, that was probably back in 2009, 2000. No, no, farther than that. More like 2013 to 15. I can't remember how long ago it was. I'm picturing myself in the other building and different, so many things have happened since then.
Yeah. I also work with cities, and one particular city, their secret formula for their social media to go viral, it had to include an animal. So they were joking about
Yeah, that makes
when the
sense.
mayor did the state of the city address to included his pet in the video or something.
Yeah, yeah. People like the puppies and kittens.
Yeah. So a lot of churches have tight budgets and like to channel a lot of their money to ministry. And so in the communications department, how do you work with your budget and make the most of it and do the miracles that people think that you can do for them?
Well, we're pretty blessed in that the way our budget is actually small and it really goes to kind of extras that we need, like maybe software and things like that. The way they kind of run it is the ministry in general is kind of taking care of like if it's VBS has its own budget. So if they want banners and this and that, then it comes out of that budget. We're pretty it's not like we have a communications budget for everybody. It's like, "Oh, sorry, Vacation Bible School, we ran out of money, so we can't afford your banners this year." It doesn't really work like that. So we don't really have to like even paper, like paper, they real even our special papers that we might use for a little brochure or something like that, for the most part just comes out of the general paper budget. So we're not really scrambling to like, oh hey, we don't have enough money to promote XYZ thing. It comes down to the different ministries. So it's really not a huge issue for us. We're not really picking through the budget as the way our organization works with the communications team, which is a huge blessing for us.
Yeah. What resources do you use for yourself and your team for training and staying up on the latest? Because this stuff moves really fast.
I would say for the most part, most of us are hopping on YouTube videos to make sure we learn something, or if we're having trouble with, or just trying to overcome a hurdle of like, oh, Adobe Illustrator, how do you do that one thing? I said that's the main thing. We use a project management software called Rike, which is similar to Sunday Morning or Asana or whatever. The main criteria when we were looking for that was being able to have a little form, which we basically just used the one form for the most part. We have a couple smaller ones for specialty items, but just to get people to kind of think through. A lot of times communications are events based, so there's some questions in there like, event on the electronic calendar and approved. What is the start date of your? Because people forget to tell us these things, and like, can you describe your events for someone that doesn't know anything about it and doesn't know anything about our church or school? And so that's pretty helpful. No one ever fills it out perfectly. Well, some people do, but but then it also gets it into the system, and there's ways to tag it in different folders and ministries, and it's like anything. You can do it however you want to. We have our little system, and that's a pretty huge thing. As far as just learning and growth, I would say for the most part we do, there's five of us now, one part-timer, two middle timers. I guess they're full-time, and then two of us are kind of managers and full-time. We usually meet on Mondays and we kind of go through things and we talk about things that are inspiring us. We don't do it every single week, but we try to keep each other inspired and try to be, looking like, hey, what have you seen out there that's trendy and happening, and like what should we, try to emulate. And so we do that as a team and try to keep, well, luckily I'm the old guy, so I have our youngest person on the team is 26. She's going to be 26, I think tomorrow. So that's really helpful because like she's the one who does most of the social media, and she comes up with these funny ideas and this and that because she enjoys it, and it's easier for her to breathe social media than it is for you or I, because it's just easier for the younger brain just gets it better. So
Right.
that's pretty nice to have. We're blessed to have a little bit of a team now.
What is the passion that drives you in the morning to get up and go to work?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that I'm working for God. I'm not trying to buy the CEO a larger jet or a Corvette or something like that. Like that definitely drives me. Is like our goal is to communicate the gospel message that Jesus loves people and wants them to be saved. And so as you know, when churches are like, well, we're not sure, if we need a communications department, my argument is that's your business. You're in the communications business. There's nothing else going on here. It's like, yeah, it's great if the choir sings great and the worship leader has a beautiful voice and the guitar player meticulously plays that solo part or whatever, but which all those things communicate in their own way. Communicating the Bible message to the masses is the job. So that definitely drives me. And also I love making artwork on Photoshop, even if it, has a corporate style that is, utilitarian. I love working with the programs. I love using the skills that I learned in art school to whether it's, the color and design class and orange is the complementary color of blue and knowing all these things and using them over and over for 20 plus years. It's fun to like learn your chops and use them.
Yeah, it's one of my pet peeves is the church thinks they're so important and they got a great church program, great pastor, great members, right? But the person who lives across the street has no idea what the church is about.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's the really communication challenge, right? Like you said, if somebody didn't know about our church and didn't know about your department, how would you describe this event? Because that's who we really want to reach.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially back in the when I first started doing it. There was a Bible study. I can't think of the name of it, but it's something that comes from the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and that's great. They have different they have tons of different year-long curriculums that they go through. I can't think of the name of it. It's very popular across the nation. The gal who was overseeing it at that time would just be like, "Oh, it's called Lifelight," or like Lifelight starts again. And I was like, well, can we describe that in a way that I don't know what's Lifelight? Like I didn't know the format, and the format is that it's co-ed and it they either watch a video or read the book, and then a pastor or a teacher person, like she's like, well, everyone seems to know, and I was like, no, people don't know. The people that know are going to come anyway. Or they can't because they have soccer or something else. But the people that don't know are the only people that we want to. It's like the people that know, you can just email or call them. You can communicate with that list of the people that came last time. If you're asking me to help, but we're trying to reach people that don't know. And you need to help me describe it to them. And that is something that I still, we still struggle with that. Like people just it's not lazy. It's just like there's a lot of aspects in church tech and communications that are like that. Like people's brains just aren't wired that way. And that's why God made all sorts of different humans to do different tasks, which is, it's funny. It totally connects to, your listeners and viewers in a different way. I often am describing to people, I'm actually serving on Sundays at another church that we helped bump start, which is just not very far from here, but it was kind of 25 members or maybe 60 members, all over the age of 60, and it needed some reviving. And a young pastor came in, and me and him hit it off really good. And a bunch of people from here started serving there to get it going. But, I'm actually doing mixing sound on a regular basis over there, and I'm finding that I've done that for years since I was 18 or 19 years old because I had to do it for my own bands. But one thing I've noticed over the years, especially being worship leader and this and that, is a lot of people that will volunteer to be the sound guy or work in that area in the booth, especially for, well, it's either service, whether it's a contemporary service or a choir and organ service. Usually they're like engineers and they love the knobs and switches and the fact that they can learn how to manipulate things, but they're not usually creatives. So especially when it comes to guitar, drums, and all the vocals and, the different sounds that happen in pop music, which is that, basically the style of praise and worship music, they don't really care if the kick drum has that same sound that they're hearing on the radio. But it's not that they don't care. Their brain doesn't work that way. And it's super
Mhm.
interesting. It's like I'm constantly telling, especially younger worship leaders, I'm like, you got to get some of your creatives back behind the board because those guys, whether, God love them, they're here every week and they want to serve, but he's an engineer and he doesn't hear it. He's like, if all the mics are on and everything's functioning within normal parameters, he's done. He's not trying to like grab the compressor and make that vocal sound amazing like the one that I'm hearing on the radio or on my Spotify or whatever we're listening to these days. And it's not his fault. It's just God didn't make him that way. God made him about ones and zeros and whether it's working or whether it isn't. And we need him for certain things, but we need that creative girl or guy back there that hit, while the pastor's preaching, like, "Ooh, I can drag an image in." And then when everybody opens their eyes after the prayer, there's going to be an image of flowers. And he was just talking about flowers of the field and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the engineers don't think that way because that's just not, that's not how they're built. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's really a challenge because you're in the middle, right? So you've got ministers who've got a message to communicate, right? You got to make that message alive, and then you got to get that message to people who don't have a clue who you are or what you're about,
Right.
right? And make that all come together. It's some great responsibilities there. What encouraging word do you have for people that maybe are considering or starting working in communications in their local churches?
Well, I would say no. Well, it's like I was saying before, it's always been super important, but I think people are understanding the importance of it more and more. And it is rewarding because, for for example, I was speaking of my pastor sending out his short emails where he just writes a little letter each week. And then yesterday, after he sent the thing about Nancy Paul, who passed away, I would say right away a few came in like, "Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you so much. I didn't know this lady, but this is such a beautiful tribute to her." That's great feedback for him too, but for me, it was just like, oh, okay, that's super nice to know that I'm sending something out and it's touching people's hearts. Not that I wrote it, but I do help rewrite it and use AI to get through it to make sure that all the grammar is correct and I mean, it's just super rewarding when you hear the stories. Like when I see the report, usually weekly, we get a report from my coworker Jennifer of like this many people are getting baptized on Sunday, and especially now, I feel like the ministry here is more vibrant than it's ever been. I think things have come together. There's, in every business, in every church, there's hard times and better times. And I just feel like we're in a time where things are just really vibrant. And it's just super rewarding to be a part of the mechanism that gets things onto Facebook and Instagram and in front of people's faces and on that little rectangle that they're staring at constantly. It just makes it worth it. Like I said, I would so much rather be helping the gospel get out there than helping the CEO buy a bigger jet.
If our listeners wanted to reach out and connect with you, is there an appropriate way that they can?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in front of these three screens. I got three of them right now because most days, and yeah, email is the best. Which everybody over here at St. John's is first initial last name at stjohnsorange.org, which is kind of a long URL, but there's about I don't know 4,000 St. John's Lutheran churches in the nation. There's so many St. John's Lutheran churches that when I was first working with the website company that we use to launch that website, they had told me that they had put things on and this had happened. And then the gal got back to me. She's like, because I was like, I wasn't seeing it. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see the content. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We're literally working with 3 other St. John's Lutheran churches right now. And I was like, really? So that working with 4 of us called St. John's Lutheran Church back in 2015 when we first launched a website through that company. It was so funny.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you to our listeners for joining us today and listening. We appreciate when you review, can share this video from wherever you're listening, and look forward to you joining us on our next one as we look into some of these great insights about the technology and communications of churches and how we all can do a better job. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate you leaving a review, liking, and sharing this podcast wherever you have joined us. I'm looking forward to next week here on Church Tech's Careers as we navigate the back office of ministry and how we can have an impact on our community and uplift the members of our local church. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io.